I bet you never thought that a real estate attorney would tell you, if you want to learn about real estate, just turn on an episode of Bluey.
Bluey!
That's right. If you are a parent of young children and have Disney Plus or YouTube, then you are probably watching Bluey right alongside my husband and I. Our 2-year-old absolutely loves it. And there is a recent episode that has just taken the internet by storm. Longest episode of Bluey to date, called The Sign. I'm going to warn you, spoilers abound here. So if you haven't watched it, then just go watch it, come back in 30 minutes and finish this video. But if you are buying or selling real estate, then this episode of Bluey is a perfect example of all of the things that could happen while you're under contract. All right, so here's the summary. The Healer family is moving. I know, it's devastating. I was sad when I saw it too. And Bluey and Bingo are really not thrilled about the sign in the front yard. That's why it's called The Sign. And they go under contract with some dogs who can't see. If you have seen the episode, you know what I'm talking about. It's very humorous. But this couple has decided they're going to buy the Healer's house. And we go through the episode, a lot of shenanigans abound. The family is really upset about moving. And in North Carolina, if you're using the North Carolina standard offer to purchase, if you are a seller that has committed to sell your property, then you're not getting out of that contract without the buyer's permission. Otherwise, it would be seller breach. In North Carolina, those standard offers to purchase have the right of specific performance. What that means is that the buyer could sue you to make you specifically perform the terms of the contract, which include selling the house at the agreed upon price. And if you're having to go to court, not within the time frame, you're probably past that, but to make you do the things that you said you would do in the contract. So the Healers, they were in North Carolina. They're stuck. They don't really have a choice now. They have to move forward to closing. And we see the Healers go all the way through, Bandit and Chili are carrying boxes out of the house. Bingo, up to this point, had been thrilled about selling the house. And then you realize Bingo didn't understand that meant they had to move away and leave their house and take all of their things. So we get to the end. Bingo and Bluey are sitting in the front. They have this really sweet moment where Bluey's trying to cheer Bingo up and tell them everything's going to be okay. The family is loading into the car. Nothing is left in the house. They're getting ready to pull out of the driveway. And Bandit gets a phone call from their real estate agent. And flashback, we had seen all throughout the episode all of these little coincidences stacking up, and they end up with the buyers that had gone under contract looking through a telescope and seeing a house that has a pool, which is what they really wanted. So they decide they're not going to buy the Healer's house anymore. And that's the call that Bandit is getting in the driveway. So we see this awesome moment where Bandit hangs up the phone. He pulls this for sale sign out. He throws it into the road. And Chili just comes and tackles him. The kids follow. And they're just so happy they're going to stay in their house. Now, this is where it gets really interesting on the buyer's side of things. Because you're like, okay, well, in North Carolina, the seller couldn't back out. Why could the buyer? And that's because in North Carolina, there's, public policy that you can't make the buyer buy, but if the seller has agreed to sell, you have to sell. That may not seem fair to you, but unfortunately, that is the way that it's done in North Carolina. And we have to assume, if they were buying in North Carolina, they'd probably put down an earnest money deposit, maybe even a due diligence deposit. Now, due diligence in North Carolina is non-refundable. As soon as you pay it, the sellers get to keep it, regardless of if you back out. But earnest money may be refundable if you terminate the contract before your due diligence period has expired. So given the custom in North Carolina that, due diligence usually ends a week or two before the closing date, we could safely assume that the buyers of the Healer's house had passed their due diligence period. And since the Healers had already moved out, they were probably pretty close to closing day. In that case, these buyers would be walking away from their earnest money and their due diligence fee. They're not getting that back, and the Healers would be able to keep that. So in this case, the Healer family got lucky. Their buyer has terminated the contract. And they've all done some soul searching in this episode, and they've determined they really don't want to move. So when Bandit chucks that sign into the road, that's them symbolically saying, okay, we got under contract. We got lucky this time. We didn't have to try to breach the contract. We don't actually have to move. And they're making that decision. We're not going to relist the property. This is giving them an opportunity to change their mind without breaching any other contracts. So while they likely had a listing agreement with their real estate agent, they would have, that listing agreement would govern if they had to pay any fees to their agent for deciding not to move forward. But that would be the appropriate time for them to say, we're not pursuing this process any further. Not while you're under contract. Not a great time to try to breach that contract with your buyer because there could be severe, severe penalties. So in this case, lucky healers, they don't have to move. They didn't have to sell their house to the dogs who can't see. And Bingo and Bluey live to play another day.